Welcome to today's Explainer. We're stepping back in time to investigate a single cinematic moment that literally altered the course of history, the assassination of John F. Kennedy. This isn't just a biography about a president. It's a deep dive into what is arguably America's greatest unsolved mystery. So let's set the stage, cut through the noise, and unravel the facts, the official investigations, and those massive, enduring questions that are still echoing through the decades.
Right, so picture this. It's November 22nd, 1963 in Dallas, Texas. It's this bright, crisp autumn afternoon. The streets are packed with cheering crowds, you've got American flags waving in the wind, and vintage 1960s architecture all around. It was supposed to be a totally routine visit. A classic black presidential limousine was slowly making its way through Dealey Plaza. Inside, President Kennedy and First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy were smiling, waving. Photographers, Secret Service agents, TV cameras, they were all there capturing what felt like a triumphant, historic day. But then, in mere seconds, the entire atmosphere shifted. Gunshots shattered that bright afternoon. In the blink of an eye, a moment of absolute celebration transformed into a scene of shock, panic, and overwhelming tragedy, right in front of the world.
And that sudden, violent shift left us all with one massive question. A question that has completely haunted historians and the general public ever since. Who really killed JFK? I mean, more than 60 years have passed since that dark day in Dealey Plaza, and yet, this mystery still completely captivates people. Was it exactly as the official reports claim? Or, is there something more hidden beneath the surface of those dramatic shadows and redacted files? Well, that is exactly what we're going to explore today.
Section 1. The Day That Changed America.
To really grasp the sheer impact of this tragedy, we kind of have to understand who the world actually lost. John Fitzgerald Kennedy wasn't just another politician. To so many people, he was the literal embodiment of a brand new era. Elected in 1961 at just 43 years old, he was the 35th president, and he brought this incredibly youthful, charismatic energy to the White House. His presidency was defined by absolutely massive, high-stakes global events. I'm talking navigating the razor's edge of the Cold War, pushing the nation forward in the space race, and championing early civil rights efforts. For a huge portion of the country, Kennedy was a profound symbol of hope and the definitive face of a new generation of leadership.
So let's walk through that day. On the morning of November 22nd, the president arrived in Dallas, and the mood was just electric. But at exactly 12:30 p.m., as the open-top motorcade passed through Dealey Plaza, the unthinkable happened. Captured infamously on a home movie known as the Zapruder film, gunshots rang out. President Kennedy was fatally struck. Texas Governor John Connally, who was riding right there in the exact same vehicle, was also seriously wounded. The scene was just pure chaos. Secret Service agents rushing the limousine, police scrambling to secure the area, emergency vehicles racing through downtown. They sped straight to Parkland Memorial Hospital. But despite the desperate, frantic efforts of the medical team, President Kennedy was pronounced dead shortly afterward. That news, it sent an absolute shockwave across the entire globe.
Section 2. The Prime Suspect. It didn't take long for the investigation to zero in. Within just hours of the shooting, police tracked down and arrested a former U.S. Marine named Lee Harvey Oswald. Investigators alleged that those deadly shots were fired from a very specific, elevated spot, the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. If you look at the geography of it, that window provided a clear, direct line of sight right down onto the presidential motorcade passing below in the plaza.
But here's where things get complicated. Oswald didn't confess. At all. Actually, he fiercely denied it. While he was being paraded through the police station, totally swarmed by reporters and flashing camera bulbs, he uttered a phrase that has literally echoed through time. He looked out and said, "I'm just a patsy." It's such a chilling quote. That single defiant statement instantly injected a massive dose of suspicion into the whole narrative, and it basically laid the foundation for decades of intense speculation. Was he telling the truth, or was that just the desperate lie of a guilty man?
And just when the nation thought, okay, we'll see this play out in court and get to the truth, an absolutely unbelievable twist happened. 2 days later, police were transferring Oswald. The whole thing was being broadcast on live television, and suddenly a local nightclub owner named Jack Ruby lunges forward and shoots and kills Oswald right there on camera, before he could ever stand trial. It was an unprecedented, surreal moment. The prime suspect was dead, and with him, any chance of cross-examining him in a court of law vanished forever.
Section 3. The Official Verdicts. So the country was reeling, and to try and restore some public confidence, President Lyndon B. Johnson set up a definitive investigation in 1964.
We know it today as the Warren Commission. After months of combing through evidence, fingerprint analysis, and witness testimonies, they laid out 3 major official conclusions. First up, Lee Harvey Oswald acted entirely alone. Second, a total of 3 shots were fired from that 6th-floor window. And third, they found absolutely no credible evidence of any larger conspiracy. And just like that, this became the definitive, official government explanation of what happened.
Section 4. Theories and Controversies.
But as you probably know, a lot of people just didn't buy it. Because so many questioned the Warren Commission's findings, these alternative theories quickly took root, and they have stubbornly endured for decades. Some of the biggest ones? Well, some folks suggest organized crime syndicates were involved. Others look globally, speculating about foreign governments or even rogue elements within our own domestic intelligence agencies. And perhaps the most widely debated theory of all is the potential for multiple shooters. The idea that Oswald simply couldn't have pulled it off alone. Now, to be clear, successive official investigations have rigorously examined these claims over the years. But to date, none of them have conclusively established a conspiracy.
And you know, this persistent skepticism, it was heavily compounded by the fact that so many government records and heavily redacted files surrounding the assassination remained totally classified for years. It was like a giant puzzle with missing pieces. While tens of thousands of those documents have finally been released recently, that long period of secrecy really only fueled the fire of public doubt. It took an already tragic event and transformed it into one of the most relentlessly studied, debated, and re-examined moments in modern human history.
Section 5. An enduring legacy.
So, what's the big takeaway here?
Well, the assassination of President Kennedy fundamentally changed America forever. On a purely practical level, it completely transformed and modernized presidential security protocols to make sure an open-top motorcade tragedy like that could never ever happen again. But on a deeper, psychological level, it deeply affected public trust in the government. That fracture in trust, born out of those lingering questions and classified documents, it really reshaped American political culture. For the generation that lived through it, sitting in front of those old television broadcasts, it became the defining where were you when moment. A moment that permanently scarred the national consciousness.
As we wrap up this explainer, we find ourselves right back at the question that started it all. Was Lee Harvey Oswald truly the lone gunman, or are there still unanswered questions hiding out there in the shadows of history? The official record clearly points to one man, but the relentless public debate, it reminds us of how a single, devastating moment can alter a nation's entire course, leaving a legacy of doubt that lasts for generations. So what do you think? It's definitely a fascinating piece of history to ponder. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning and keep learning.